There's something remarkable about individuals who, for whatever reason, decide one day to carve out their own path and pursue their passion. These brave souls see an opportunity to create the life they desire for themselves and their loved ones. Make no mistake, this journey isn't for everyone, and that's the undeniable truth. You really need to be a next level strategist, cunning, and ready to seize opportunities at any given moment. What's up, everyone? This is Fit for Business with me, Jarod Lehn. If you could do me a favor, if you guys are watching this on YouTube for the very first time, and go ahead and tap that subscribe button. Or if you were listening along on Spotify, please go ahead and tap that follow button as well. Thank you very much. This is episode 33. Welcome. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm the owner and founder of Socialtopia, a marketing agency based out of Monroe, New York. We've been in business now for just over 6 years. Our agency primarily partners with fitness and home service-based entrepreneurs. We help them elevate their brand and achieve their marketing goals. Today is a special day for me as we have a guest who hails from my hometown or my hood. He has taken the road, I would say, less traveled, forging his own path and creating a life of success. Please join me in welcoming Ed Alisea. Ed is not just the owner of one, but two interconnected businesses. One of them is Heads Up, and the second one is ASAP Scrap Recycling. Ed, welcome to the show, brother. Appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you. Good to be here.
No, we're excited to have you, Ed. For those who are listening and along and following, maybe if you can kind of give just like a small introduction about yourself, who you are, and maybe where you hail from and what you do.
Sure. Graduated from Monroe Woodbury. I won't say the year. I'm not going to date myself, but it seems like it was many moons ago. I was a kid that didn't want to go to college. I tried it. I dropped out. I was always a workaholic. I always wanted to earn, so I started working early, right when I got my working papers at 14. Before that, I was even walking dogs and doing small stuff around the neighborhood to make money. I was the kid shoveling driveways back in the day. And I did whatever I had to do to make a buck. And that kind of entrepreneurial spirit followed me into my adulthood. I worked for a cleaning company for a long time through high school. And then when I dropped out of college, I went to tech school for 18 months at Lincoln Tech. I took a CAD drafting program. While I was in tech school, I got hired for some side work for a material handling company. And that material handling company, they designed like garment rail systems, racking systems for warehouses in northern New Jersey. Most of the business was in northern New Jersey at the time. And that job turned into a full-time job when I graduated tech school. And I was with that company for about a decade in total. And then they had financial problems, and they had a bankruptcy. And during that time, I was on unemployment, and I was posed with a big question. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And during that time,
how old were you at that point, man?
Huh?
How do you remember? Like, how old were you at that point when you had that?
Yeah, I was right around when the problem started. I was about 26, and then I was unemployment. I was about 27 when I was on unemployment, and I had to make a decision. And the decision was, do I take another job with a competing company for a decent salary, or do I go in business for myself? I had a couple of accounts I was doing side work for. Do I take those accounts and kind of try to parlay that into a full-time business? And that's what I did. I just got tired of working for somebody else and kind of being at the whims of their ups and downs and their decisions, good or bad, And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this chance and try to take control of the situation. I know the business. I know what the customers want. And I kind of jumped off a cliff. I had 2 clients at the time. I was charging consulting rates to do permit services. I would do RFQs, requests for quotes, designs, all material handling related. And at the time, I was charging $120 an hour, which was great. I was making a good rate for my services. And I figured, you know what? If I can book 20 hours a week and then build on that. I can survive, and we'll see what happens. And that's what I
Hmm.
did.
So now you have the two companies. You want to just like spit on them briefly, like what each company is and what you guys do, real quick, and then we can kind of go from there.
Well, I'll keep kind of going off of that whole consulting thing. When I started Heads Up, Heads Up was Heads Up started as a material handling company that just did designs, requests for quotes, RFQ studies, basically putting bid packages together so that they can get prices to actually do the turnkey build outs. These material handling systems to build these racking systems, these structures to hold these goods. So I basically took the consulting opportunity and turned it into a full contracting business, because at some point I said to myself, why am I going to let these jobs go to somebody else when I could bid the job and I can get the crew together and I could, get get set up as a construction company. And that's where the real opportunity is. Some of these jobs were big ticket jobs at the time. $100,000 project, $200,000 project. There was some good margin there if you knew how to do it. So what I ended up doing was I would set the bids up, and then I would tell the client, let me bid, and if I win, I'll give you a 50% discount on the consulting fees. And that started me with construction and actually doing turnkey solutions for these customers. And then once the money started rolling in from that, and I was successful at it, and I started building a strong crew and successfully completing these jobs, we quickly transitioned from a consulting company to a full-fledged, construction company specializing in material handling solutions, right? And then at that point, I really wasn't interested in doing, hourly consulting work anymore, because I was so busy with these projects, and my goal was to just get more projects. So the consulting that I did turned into like a value added service that I actually ended up doing it for free, to get these projects. I would go in, I would design, I would diagnose the problem, and then I would come up with the best solution. And I was very close to the client, and even if they got other bids, they ended up going with me because I was the guy right next to them helping them figure out the solution the whole time. And they would even tell me if my pricing was a little high. A lot of times I was so close to the deal that they would tell me, you got to come down a little bit. So I was always being coached, and I was always back then I was close to every deal, and I would win. My close ratio was very high because I was very very involved from right from the get go.
So now at that point, was it Heads Up still? Was it Heads Up at that point, or that wasn't the title of the company?
It was Heads Up. It was always Heads Up. We just changed kind of like our lines of business, and kind of moved towards construction and actually turnkey build outs. And that's where all the money was made for me, is doing these big projects, signing more projects, building my network, building up my name, my brand. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I was a millionaire. I had made, I'm looking at my bank account, my business bank account, and I have a crazy amount of money in there because I went on a tear for a couple of years doing these projects. I got lucky on a couple of deals. I was able to buy materials at a really good price, and the margins were very high at that point because I was doing everything. I didn't have a big staff. So the first few years in business, I crushed it. And I took that momentum, I took that money, and that's how I built the business. I invested back into the business, into myself, and then continued to grow the company.
Hmm. It's a great story, man. So then now, besides Heads Up, we have the second company. If you want to just like spit on it real quick, ASAP. How that tie into what you guys are doing today?
So after being successful with Heads Up for a few years, it was clear that I needed a warehouse. I needed a storage space to put all these materials and supplies that I was buying.
Hmm.
The way I make money is I opportunity buy equipment so that I could sell it at, I give the customer the best price, but also I'm going to make the best margin. So I'm a guy that goes to auctions. I'm a guy that opportunity buys closeouts. I do liquidations when warehouses go out of business. We'll buy the stuff, take it all down. In 2023, a good example of this was when Bed Bath and Beyond started closing. When Chapter 11 they started closing stores. We cleaned out three of those, and when I say cleaned out, I'm talking about millions of square foot worth of material handling equipment that goes into our inventory. And then when we bid the jobs, we're more competitive. We have used equipment to bid the jobs. We win more deals, and we make more margin on the deals that we win. So because of the success of that whole business model, the buying and the selling, the closing more deals, being strategic, using used equipment. We also sell new equipment, by the way, and I'm also an importer. But the success of that business led me to buy a property in Montgomery, New York. I needed a property where I could store all the goods and just pile up a lot of stuff. So I ended up buying a 30-acre property, which was an old lumber yard in Montgomery, New York. And it was like roots and vines growing through all the buildings. It had been trashed. It was abandoned for 8 years. It was the local hangout for the kids. There was a hunting ground for local hunters. We took that property. We got it on a bank sale, and we took that property and we turned it into like basically like a little mini city for racking. And we cleaned it up. We fixed up all the buildings. And before you know it, I have tens of millions of pounds worth of steel piled up at the yard. And that's what gave birth to ASAP. ASAP was a concept that instead of using a third party to drop containers here and fill them up and let them pick it up and get paid with a lot of deductions, why not take control of it, cut out the middleman, and prepare our own steel? And then that idea led to looking into the property, looking into the zoning, and we discovered that the property was actually zoned for car dismantling and metal and recycling. So all I needed was a zoning variance. So then it just became let's open to the public. Let's try to get the zoning variance. Let's hire the attorneys. Let's go to the town. Let's go before the planning board. And that was the first part of the concept of ASAP. The second part was we need to raise capital. Like to start a scrapyard, you need $6 million for all the machines. That's the average. You need about $6 million to start a basic scrapyard to do metal and non-ferrous, to do any kind of metal. And we also do cars, so we need a lot of equipment. So the next part of the deal to make it happen, to kind of connect the dots, was I need a partner. So I ended up hooking up with Adam Weitzman, who's a huge scrap buyer out of Owego, New York. He still buys most of our stuff, and he's a shredder, so he buys it and shreds it. He buys from yards like ours, and he shreds it, and he sells it to the mill, or he sells it overseas to, whoever's buying at that particular time. It could be Asia, it could be Turkey, it could be whatever. So I actually got really lucky when I told him I wanted to open the yard. He wanted the steel. He knew I had tens of millions of pounds worth of steel, so I sent him a drone video. And the arrangement was that he was going to coach me and he was going to help me get the yard open, and he wanted to buy all the steel, and he was going to supply me with some machines to get me started. Well, we got super lucky, and he owned 15 yards just like ASAP all around the Northeast, and one of them, for whatever reasons, he was closing in Poughkeepsie, and he had all the machines I needed, and he needed to put them somewhere. So he got me started with all the machines that I needed to get the business started, and that's how we started so quickly. I couldn't have done it without him, and the upside for him was that he got tens of millions of pounds worth of steel that he needs to feed his shredder. And that's how the relationship started. And we still have a great relationship. He's a great dude. He's been a mentor to me. And that's the story of Heads Up. There was a partner involved that I had to split from. There's some stories there. I don't know which ones I should share at this juncture, but I had to put it simply, I had a bad partner, and he did some bad things, and I had to get rid of him. So there was a little bit of drama there. But today, ASAP is a fully functioning scrapyard. We're doing great. I got the business down to a science to run a small, nice, really well-oiled machine operation. We call it a feeder yard, and we're doing great.
Hey man, thanks for sharing. That intro with us, and for our guests, it's going to be interesting to hear some of the that story of like where you came from. That's what I'm always more interested in than like where you came from and like what you did and like where you're going. Yeah, so let's jump in some of these other questions I got for you, Ed. I'm excited to hear some of your responses. You have that just these questions are built for you. So like with that, can you share a pivotal moment, Ed, like from your entrepreneurial journey, where you face, and I'm sure you have some setbacks, and you could choose one specific setback that you might have had, whichever along your path, and how you overcame that setback, if any one of those stands out, and if you want to segue that into maybe like that business partner relationship, you can, or share another setback that's I know you have a lot of them, so
I'll
whatever you
talk.
feel like.
I'll talk. I'll talk about the business partner relationship. I'll talk about it carefully. that was a major setback. So we can,
Sure.
that's a great topic, and
Let's
it
go
could
there.
teach a lot of people how to handle a business partnership. So
Absolutely.
um, when I had this idea to start a scrap yard, I ended up hooking up with a guy who was very friendly, charismatic. He knew the scrap business. He came on really strong. We became like fast, quickly acquainted, fast friends, and he was going to be the sweat equity partner for the yard. I was already busy with Heads Up. I have my hands tied. I'm traveling all over the country. Heads Up is a national company. I got to go wherever the sales are. I got to go. If I get a call tomorrow and there's a big deal in Florida, I'm on a plane. So I like the
So
idea of
that was kind of like the connection right off the back. Like, hey, this guy has like sweat equity and he knows scrap. So that was kind of like the thing that got you like connected right
correct,
away. Yeah.
correct. So we forged a partnership based on that. And listen, for all my good qualities, I've been smart. I've made a lot of smart business moves. One of my things, though, that is a downside of me is that I do trust people, and I do that for my own sanity. I've had a lot of success trusting people and letting go of responsibilities to people that I trust. So this was a person I chose to trust. I made a bad decision. So, but I wasn't, I wasn't completely, stupid about the way I structured the deal. I already had a successful business on this property, so I took the majority stake of the company. That gave me some control, and plus I own the property. So I knew if something did go wrong, I'd have some levers that I could pull to fix it. Otherwise I wouldn't have done the deal. So and it was a great deal for him because he wasn't putting any money into the deal. It was all me financing the whole thing. So we made a sweet deal that should have been mutually beneficial. But things started to happen. I started to notice things right away. The scrap business is a cash
Right
business.
away.
Right away, I noticed a few things that were off. Okay, I noticed personal spending through the business account. I noticed, I caught some non-truths, some lies when some questions were asked. I noticed that cars were missing from the yard. Cars would come in, and if they were nicer cars, we'd put them aside. And we were supposed to do an auction, but then those cars would disappear, and I would ask my partner. I'd be like, well, when are we going to do the auction? Oh, nobody wanted those cars, and we scrapped them. And I'm like, really? We scrapped them? So just a lot of things didn't add up after a while. It wasn't too long before I stopped trusting him, or I lost some trust, and then I was watching him, and then that's when it became really deep. Started to realize how much money was actually going missing, and then it became a question of this is not working. How do I get rid of this guy? I got to move on. So it was a process, but because I had a little bit of leverage in the situation, I was able to get him to relinquish all the shares of the company, and I was able to remove him. He did something criminal, and that's why I was able to get him out of the company. He did something really fucked up. So I won't get into what it was,
Yeah,
but
no,
it
for
was
sure. But
it,
like,
it was
see, but
it was
I
it
think
was
what's
it,
the
it, it was enough so I could dig my heels in and say, hey, you got to go.
yeah.
We're done.
But I think what's good about this story. No, I mean, good about the story that you're able to share the lessons that you learned. Right, number one. Number two, somebody in your nature. Although I know you're very trustworthy, like upfront, like the trust part. You take that leap of faith, right, and the trust part comes later. Like with somebody like you, I get it. I'm like the same way, but like you were able to catch on like pretty quickly. It seemed like with this individual, like like because although you've been like crazy busy with Heads Up, you're that type of person that like has your hands on everything and you know what's going on pretty much at all times. So I think if it wasn't for that, things could have fell through the cracks, but because of that, it didn't.
Yeah, the hardest thing about it and the biggest challenge was just like knowing that there was shenanigans going on, and then having to sit
Yeah,
there and actually watch it and take notes, for 6 months to build
six
basically.
months.
Oh yeah. So this went on for 6 months, and just I had a private investigator. I had my attorneys locked and loaded, and it was just a matter
Ugh.
of we know what's going on. How do we how do we prove it? Because again, some businesses are harder to prove what's going on. And in the case of
are you able to share like the final proof that broke the the camel straw? Like what was like that
well,
final?
the final proof was in black and white. He did something that was in black and white. It was traceable,
Mm,
and it was criminal what he did.
gotcha.
And because of that, we were able to kind of say, hey, we're going to go after you criminally, or you're going to relinquish all your shares to the company. Now, even then, it was a win to separate from him, but we took a big loss because you know there was a lot of loss going on, and it wasn't just the money that was disappearing; it was also the way that he was running the yard. You know, the way that when somebody's doing the kind of things that he was doing, he's excited and he's paying attention to what he's getting out of it, and he's not watching the other employees. So then it becomes a whole company culture of nobody giving a fuck, and that's kind of what we had. So when I took over the company, I was able to clean it up. I got rid of all the bad blood that was there. Cut the cancer out, as they say. And then I shrunk the business down because he was also overbuying. He wasn't a good business person when it came to buying and selling. He didn't realize that we were losing money, or we were at best breaking even on the purchases he was making. And he was just basically showing me big piles of steel every time I came to the yard. And I'm like, well, that's great, but I'm in the financials and I see we're not doing well, and so it doesn't add up. Where's the money going? So at some point, I had to intervene because I said no, I'm not putting any more money into this business. So when I stopped putting money in, that's when the real games began. Because then he was trying to use whatever leverage he had against me to kind of get a hold of the situation for his benefit, and I had to figure out exactly what he was doing, something I could throw my hooks into to prove that that he's basically stealing.
Hey, like we got you, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, but in the end, what he did was to cover up the stealing. He borrowed money from a factoring agency, and a factoring agency is basically a super high interest, high fee loan, and he had no right to do that. Another smart thing that I did was I had a really good operating agreement with him, and it basically said, hey, you can't spend more than $10,000 without telling me, you know. And when he signed power of attorney over to the factoring company, he borrowed hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I got rid of him, and it was a fucked up 6 months to go through it, and kind of the uncertainty, being in like that precarious position. And I got through it. I got rid of him, and everything's fine now. But it wasn't without losses, and I ended up having to pay off all those factoring loans, hundreds of
So
thousands of dollars.
so Ed, if we can for right there, out of everything that you shared in that time, what would you say is the number one lesson you learned at that time that you could share? Like, the story you just shared, what's the number one lesson you learned out of that?
I'm going to tell everybody to always lead with good intentions, think positively about the people you're going to deal with, but do background checks. I guess the biggest lesson I learned is if I would have done a background check on this individual, I would have seen that he had
Hmm.
multiple judgments against him already.
Hmm.
And if people have judgments against them, it means they're fucked up. They're fucked up in one way or another because they're not paying
Sure.
bills, and the credit was bad. So now, I mean, my philosophy now is if you got bad credit, I won't even hire you. The first thing I do with people is I do a credit check. Or we'll hire them and then do a credit check. And if it's bad, we at least know, and we can take measures to control them and watch them, because people that have fucked up credit, they've had a checkered past. And I'm in businesses where you could steal from me. You could steal scrap metal, you could steal cash. There's
Yeah.
ways to steal. So I'm not hiring anybody with bad credit. And if they have bad
Yeah.
credit, and even if they're doing well, or they haven't had any problems within recently, desperate people do desperate things. And if you can't get credit and life gets tough, a lot of people will steal. And if they have, I'm also going to do a background check. If they have any stealing in their past, I'm not going to hire them. So I look for good credit. I look for clean
Hmm.
clean history. And listen, I'll hire ex-cons, by the way, and I have hired ex-cons, but I need to
Sure.
know what they were charged for,
Right.
okay, and what I'm getting myself into. I like to stay away from thieves. I like to stay away from I do like to stay away from drug addicts or ex-drug addicts because they have a history of relapsing and then they steal too. I
Thousand
mean,
percent.
at the end of the day, you got to do background checks. You got to check for credit. And then you also have to have an iron fist. Like everybody at my yard knows that Eddie doesn't go for stealing. Eddie is very forgiving for certain things, but I don't go for stealing. And if you get caught
Yeah.
stealing at my yard, you're going out in handcuffs every time. You're going out in handcuffs. Doesn't matter who you are because I need to set example for the rest of the people that I don't go for it and that this ain't gonna fly here. You know, I have
Yeah.
tolerance for a lot. I will forgive a lot, not for stealing.
Yeah, I mean, and let's just be like clear cut and dry. Nowadays in 2024, background checks are inexpensive and it would save you a shit ton of money, hassle, and headache in the long run. 1000%. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. In what ways would you say you view fitness as a valuable tool for resilience, mental fortitude, and just navigating, business as a whole or entrepreneurship?
Business is war. It's war every day, and people are going to try to test you. So, fitness is of the utmost importance. Mental fitness, and physical fitness is mental fitness. All this stuff is proven now. You know, we all know now that alcohol is bad for you. There's no good amount of alcohol. Everybody should just quit drinking. But that doesn't mean we're gonna quit, but we're gonna manage it, right? I still drink, but I drink very little. And I'm just, I watch my health. I get blood tests every 3 months. I'm taking a vitamin regimen to kind of work with the deficiencies. I'm working out 6 times a week. I'm doing strength training. I'm doing jujitsu. I'm doing Muay Thai kickboxing. I'm ready for anything. I'm down to fight if I have to. I'm down to kick somebody's ass. I mean, it's never
Yeah,
going to
you're
happen,
ready if you're
but
ready if it does.
that's kind of
Yeah.
how I feel about it. I feel like most times in the businesses that I'm in construction and recycling, I'm being attacked from all sides.
Mm.
Right now I got issues with the Carpenters Millwrights Union. I'm fighting issues with the Department of Commerce for import tariffs. They're fucking with me. It's always something. I've had guys set up basically fake injuries on job sites, and then once a year I'm getting sued for some type of injury case, and usually it's self-inflicted or somebody's fucking around. Everything we do to the top standard. So when somebody gets hurt, I always question what happened, and so construction, you have that element of stuff happening, injuries. There's always something. I always got a case that I'm fighting, you know, and I'm always ready. I'm ready for battle. That's business, and that's why fitness to me is of the utmost importance. You need to be sharp mentally, physically, and just ready to take on the day and win the day. You win the day, you win the week, you win the month, you win the year, right? So that's how I look
Love
at
it.
it.
So Ed, when the topic of success, comes into your mind, who do you personally think of and why?
I think of all the big stars that are, uber successful, of course. You know what I mean? I think of Bill Gates. I think of Elon Musk. I think of Jeff Bezos. They're good guiding lights to to say, if I'm going to grow my business, how did they do it? But inspiration to me, I just, real inspiration for me, that I can reach, that I can see, that I can try to emulate is just guys that are in their 60s that are, they're clearly wealthy, but they're happy, they're healthy, their family's doing well, they still work. To me, that's the ultimate success. That's what I'm going for. I'm not going to be the biggest and the best. I'm in my mid 40s now. I'm not trying to be Bill Gates, but I want to be the guy in his 60s that's still healthy, still hitting the gym, still doing jujitsu, still able to really get out there and move, and also successful, family's doing well, and longevity. To me, it's not how long you live, it's the quality of the years. I'm working out and I'm keeping my health together so that I can stay sharp and have good days. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean that's what it's about.
gone are the days where you could be like the rich, business guy that's half sick and half functioning. You can't. The competition is too stiff. People are living longer. Everybody's prioritizing their health these days. There was a statistic that I read recently that gyms do so well because the amount of people that actually go is like 18% of the memberships. But that's changing with the new generation. The new generation, the millennials, and then it's more and more as it gets younger. More and more people are prioritizing the gym, and that minimum attendance is going up. So it just tells you that people realize that working out is important. It's just as important as being scholastically, performing in school, getting an education. Fitness is just as important. It's part of the puzzle if you're going to be really successful and compete in today's like very competitive
Well, I think
market.
it's like, it's like what we know in 2024 as opposed to like what people knew back in like 1984. If you're looking at, the big dogs that were back in the day, like on Wall Street, and like you're saying, they were going hard and like barely functioning after a night out of, partying, T&E, whatever it may be. Times have
Yeah.
changed. And it's basically through, I think, knowledge. What it's just what we know as a society today, and like we're like you said, the younger generations are just trying to step up there.
Times have
A thousand
definitely
percent.
changed. Think about the fact that in the 50s, doctors told you
Yeah,
smoking was good for you, and they were smoking in the
yeah,
office when you went there. There wasn't too long ago that people were throwing lawn darts up in the air thinking that
yeah.
that was
Well,
safe.
yeah,
So you live and learn, and we get
that's
smarter as
it.
a species.
Either you adapt or die. That's what I say. So,
That's what I'm
I want to
saying.
ask this question, right? So you have the two companies, and I'm just curious. Out of those two companies, how do you go about managing the two businesses? Like, how do you balance the responsibilities and the day to day without going down the rabbit hole? Like, what's like when you so you had heads up, then you had ASAP. They're together. Now you have these two multi-functioning companies that are running simultaneously side by side and feeding off of one another. Then you have the employees that are one company and the other. So what is that like for you? Like being able to manage that?
To make it as simple as possible, for the same reason that I had a big issue with my ex-partner in a nasty split because I'm trusting. That's also the key to my success in all the businesses. I have good people. I have good people that are well trained, that I invested in, and they're running the business for me in different ways. They're helping me run the business, and I try to prioritize my time working on the business, not in the business. And you've heard this before. This is a common, saying, like you got to work on the business, not in the business. I try to do that as much as possible, but I jump in when I need to. And a good example of that is I had a sweat equity partner for ASAP, but when things went bad, I changed my whole life around. Like I'm always down. If you're a business, it's funny. I had a great meeting last night with an industry group that I meet in upstate New York, and there's this guy. He was really impressive to me. He's got a couple of restaurants. He has a car wash. He's he's an immigrant from he's from Albania. Just a really hardworking guy, smart guy. And he was telling a story about somebody asked him what he does, and he explained he had this one day, and he had just had this day where it was nothing but problems. He had a problem at the car wash. He had to go under and change the chain out that pulls the cars through and get greased up. Then he had a problem. He owns a laundromat. He had a problem over there. He had to go fix it. Then it was Friday night at one of his pizza restaurants. He had to go. He's throwing dough, making pizzas. Then the kitchen got backed up, and he was helping cook. And that's basically what it is when it comes down to it in a nutshell. That's what business is. You got to be, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to be ready to jump in when you need to. So for me, when the partnership went bad and that split was imminent, and I was in that whole frame of mind. After we made the split, I had to jump in and become a scrap guy, like full time for 6 months. I had to figure the whole business out more than I already knew because I didn't need to know that much having a sweat equity partner. But when he was gone, I had to go run the business. So now I was a full time scrap guy, and I relied on all my people at Heads Up to run Heads Up, and they did a great job. And I put all my attention into ASAP until I got it running the way I wanted to, and I built a small, really trusted team there to run that. And after the 6 months was over, I was able to pull back and then refocus on Heads Up. And now most of my focus is on Heads Up because it's a larger company, and because ASAP runs on the same property that Heads Up runs its warehouse operation on. It's easy for me to check on it when I'm up there because I got to go check on both businesses. And I just, I have a really I have a really strict schedule. Mondays and Wednesdays I come to Secaucus to my main office for Heads Up, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I go to Walden, and I look at the Heads Up warehouse operation, and I run ASAP from there. I spend a couple hours with my people up there, and Fridays, I'm traveling. Usually I'm setting up meetings, or I'm working from home or whatever. And when I have to go see jobs, I have to change that schedule. I'm always also flexible. I'm available to jump if there's an opportunity. If you tell me I got to go to California tomorrow to look at a job, well, I'm going to be in California, working from California, and I got great people in both companies that are going to hold me down while I'm out there. So I keep it flexible. I have people that I trust, and I do what I got to do to maintain both businesses. And how does Elon Musk run SpaceX, Tesla, and whatever else he's doing? He manages. He manages through good people.
Yeah,
I'm not comparing
no,
myself
that's
to Elon
fine.
Musk.
I
I'm just
totally
saying.
understand where you're getting with it. I think listeners are gonna kind of
At
yes.
the end of the day, Elon Musk has a great quote about CEOs that they get all the shit, and there's nothing more true than that. They say shit flows downhill, and in the plumbing industry, shit flows downhill. Well, guess what? It flows right on top and lands right on top of the CEO's head. That's your job, is to fix
All day,
problems.
every day. So, Ed, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start their own business but is hesitant to take the leap?
Well, the first thing I would ask is, how old are you? If you're younger, I'm gonna say take the leap. Take the leap, because there's something I call startup energy, and startup energy starts to wane in your 40s. Okay, so if you would ask me right now, if I was still working at a regular job in my mid 40s, and you would ask me, should you start up your own business? I would say you should. You still should, but you got to be very careful, and you got to be very calculated, because your time horizon is much shorter. And I would say if anybody's in their early 20s that's thinking about it, absolutely do it. Absolutely do it. You have no kids, maybe, probably. You have less responsibilities, and you should take all the risk when you're young. You should take most of your risk. Just like advising somebody on their portfolio, right? You take a lot of risk when you're young. When you start to get older, you minimize your risk. But for the most part, I would say that everybody should do it. Just people like pushing 50 and beyond should do it more carefully. They should really think about their situation, a lot of things. They should think about a lot of things, their health, their benefits, whatever job they're in. They should really think about it a
Yeah,
little
no,
more
I agree with
deeply.
you, but at the same time, I guess my also question to this is like, all right, I agree. I kind of like agree with the whole thought process behind the age thing, but I guess should everybody that's thinking about starting a business start a business too? I guess what's your thought on that? Meaning like, hey, there's some people that are meant to start and create a business, run, manage a business, and there are certain people, which there's a term that's been thrown around as of recent called the entrepreneur, right? Which is not an entrepreneur, entrepreneur. That's somebody that may work with like below you, Ed. That's like a really hardcore team player, individual, hardworking. They're going to bust their ass. They're going to help you grow your company. But come higher, hot water, they know that they're never going to want to start their own shit. So I guess what I'm saying is like it takes like a special individual, I think, to get into the entrepreneurial world is where I'm going with that. And I'm not saying everyone can't do it, but
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on that? What are the three traits you think like, hey, if you're going to start your business, like I get it, like the age is a factor, but what are the other three traits you think?
Okay. I'll give you the three traits right now. This is real easy for me. And this is what I preach to everybody. If you're going to start a business, you need three qualities. The most important quality is risk tolerance. If you don't have risk tolerance, just stay at your job. It's like a trifecta. It's like a triangle. Risk tolerance is at the top. The other corner is pain tolerance. How much pain can you suffer before you see the result? It's like bodybuilders. They have to suffer. They have to eat 8 meals a day. They have to work out 4 hours a day. But then they also have to get the right amount of sleep, and they also have to take all these vitamins and supplements and whatever steroids and whatever other performance enhancing drugs that they take. And I don't fault them for that. That's what the sport is. That's what it. And they're sacrificing their body and their health to reach their goals. That's the pain tolerance. That's pain tolerance. I got a lot of respect for guys like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler. These guys are winners. Some people might say, oh, they're just big dumb ulfs. They're big muscle bound guys. They're not dumb. They're some of the smartest people you could ever meet, and all the qualities that they have translate to business. If you want to be successful, you got to make all these sacrifices. And then the other one is Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great example. The other one, part of the trifecta is industriousness. Industriousness is how well can you get things done. It's a combination of smarts and hardworking ethic, and how well you can actually get things done. That's industriousness. I call myself industrious because I'm running multiple businesses. I had to be good at a lot of things to get to where I'm at. I had to jump in. Anybody I hire here at the company, I've done their job already. Some of those jobs I did really well. Some of those jobs I sucked at it, but I still did it. I figured out a way to do it because I had to get it done. And that's what industriousness is to me. It's like just getting shit done at any cost, no matter what. Figure it out. Find a way. And if you have those three qualities, you're going to succeed as an entrepreneur. If you have risk tolerance and you're missing a couple of the other ones, you're going to have a rough time. But you might still want to do it. But those three qualities to me equal
Yeah, I think that's
success.
a great response. And I think a lot of people that are listening, are gonna. I'm really was really engaged during those 3 points. That trifecta that you called it. Um, Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thanks for sharing with that. So let me like pose another question. I don't know if you're going to go down the rabbit hole on this, but you possibly potentially could. Market shifts, things happen. Businesses need to adapt in the face of adversity, shit like that. How do you and your company stay adaptable in the face of market fluctuations? Because market fluctuations definitely impact your business.
100%. So I've been in business for myself 18 years. And even before that, when I worked for a company for 10 years, I was really
Mm,
close to the business. I was like the number two guy, the right hand man. So I've been through market fluctuations with that company. So after being through many, many boom
mm.
bust cycles, what you realize is you got to be humble when things are good and put some money away, build a war chest, and you got to be confident when things are not so good, and just know that you're going to persevere. And that's kind of my advice. It's really that simple.
Mm. I know you're a big reader, so I'm interested to hear your response to this. Do you have one book, Ed, that you might have consumed more than once? If so, what about this book makes you particularly drawn to it?
I mean, I've read Sun Tzu, The Art of War,
Mm,
many times, just because it's a fun read. I recommend it to everybody. There's a lot of different versions of it. Just read them all and just have fun with it. The book is written in quatrains, which is like reading a poem. So you read these 4-line poems, and it teaches you about strategy in war, which is directly related to business and other things in life. And just a good fun read for everyone. There's also business books that translate it from the original translation to what it means in business. Those are fun to read too, and it teaches you a lot. And I think it's definitely a book that's easy to read. You could pick it up, you could read a couple of quatrains and put it down, and then pick it up again, and just you know, and it's a fun
mm.
read.
So, for you, Ed, is there one core belief you have that is constant no matter what?
I believe in karma. I'm not a religious guy, but I'm a spiritual guy in a lot of ways. Um, I don't know. I had a rough early childhood, but somehow I always felt like I was protected in some way, and that you know, just to keep the faith, kind of. And even to this day, I just feel like put out good vibes, do good things. Um, at the end of the day, I tell everybody my big saying, my big quote is "No good deed goes unpunished." So what I tell everybody is, go out there and do good deeds. Don't stop doing good. It's gonna give you a great return. It's gonna give you the best return. But prepare for the punishment. You will be punished for it, and that's life. And that's kind of how I run my life. I know I'm going to be punished for some of the good deeds that I do, but I also know it's going to bring me a great return, and there's more good than bad living that way.
So, and I love that response. So, I'm curious to hear. I have this question that just came to my head. I'm curious to hear your response on this. Now, you've been through the ringer, you've been through the grind. You were somebody who's like entrepreneur, right hand man for a decade before you started your company. So, you've seen a lot of shit over the past 30 years in business, right? Do you think a business or somebody running a business can be successful if they are kind, or do you think they need to be a complete asshole? Like, what's your thought process on that? Can you be kind and win in business? Now, there's
Yeah, you can be kind, and you can be kind, But go ahead,
No, yeah, I
elaborate on
was
your
going to say
question.
like so there's a difference, right? There's being kind, like where somebody is like trying to get a business transaction, and their just methodology. It's just that's just how they treat their team, their customers, and so forth all around. And then you have business owners, which I'm sure you've come across in your heyday, that you're just like, man, like I got to work with this person, like, or they're just complete, pricks. At the end of the day, they're just not kind. You know how their employees may view this individual. It's just you have that sense of a business leader, right? So now you've seen them all. So
All
like,
right, yeah, I got
you
I got a
know,
good answer for this. You can be kind, and you should be kind, but you can't be weak. At the end of the day, like gone are the days where you could be a tyrant dictator at a company. Those were like the '80s. Remember National Lampoon's Vacation? Clark's boss, not Clark's boss. What's the guy's name? His boss was like a big dickhead. You can't be like that anymore. People got options these days. We see this now. We know this. People are just going to go work somewhere else. You can't have a team if you're a dick. They're not going to put up with it. Power to the people. This is the time we're living in, and the worker has a lot of power these days, and they have a lot of options. So you're just not going to be successful if you're a dick. So you got to be kind, but you can't be weak. You have to draw the line. You have to be. I'm always ready for confrontation. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be a dick. It just means that I'm going to tell the facts. I'm going to stand on business, and people have to deal with those facts, and I'm going to try to deliver them in the most, kind way possible. But at the end of the day, the survival of the business comes first. I can't help anybody if the business isn't profitable, and I help a lot of people, but I'm useless to everyone if I'm not making money. So I have to prioritize success over everything else. And then from there, I can help.
I think I agree with what you're saying. You can be kind, but at the same time, you can be like stern with being kind at the same time. So I think yeah, I agree with you. There's just so many darn options for people to say like, all right, I'm not gonna put up with Jared's shit. I'm just gonna go find another company to go work with. If he's not gonna treat me like this, fuck him. That could just be it's easy peasy these days. So I
The other thing I tell people
hmm.
too, and I'll tell you this, is that the more successful you become, the kinder you have to be to people. The more successful you become, the nicer you have to be, because people are watching you and they might admire you and you might not even know who they are, and you could just say the wrong thing in the wrong interaction and really set somebody off, and it manifests with somebody, and you create an enemy that you didn't even know you had, because they're watching you and you don't know they're watching you, right? So the bigger and more successful you get, the kinder you have to
Yeah,
be.
no, I fully agree with you on that one. So how you do anything is how you do everything. Do you agree or disagree with this quote?
I have mixed feelings about it, because um basically what that quote says is that it's kind of reminds me of the quote that if you can't trust somebody in small matters, you can't trust them in large matters. So it does make a lot of sense, but at the same time, people put effort into things that they're passionate about, and I've always had success with things I'm passionate about. And other stuff I didn't put a lot of effort, like school. I just wasn't a good student. So I don't know. I think it has a lot of this. There is a lot of truth to it, but again, people can only be successful with their passion, and that's
Yeah,
that's
listen,
most
I ask
people.
everybody this quote because, it just happens to be my favorite quote. You've heard me probably say it too, like in the time that I've known you. It hangs on like my vision board even before I started, my agency. So it's been hanging there for like, I don't even know.
I like it. You should put your best foot forward in
Yeah.
anything you
And
do.
uh, and I agree with like what
But
you're saying. And for me, that's kind of like what it means. Like how you do it is like, what you're passionate about, like you got to do it 1,000% or nothing. And that's what it means to me. So that's my favorite quote I share with you. Like I said,
but I look at that quote and I'm too literal, right? Because like I go golfing and I'm not passionate about it. I'm just playing around. I don't keep score. Like I'm not putting 100% effort into everything. There's some things I reserve for just having fun, and not making it,
yeah,
do
for
or
sure. So
die.
now that quote, like I said,
So
it's like one of my favorite quotes of all time for me. Do you happen to have like a quote that you kind of live, eat, and breathe by? I know you shared one before.
I already Yeah, that's the one. Oscar Wilde. No good deed goes unpunished. Nothing is more true than that statement. No good deed goes unpunished. I tell everybody that. It's a laughable one too because it always comes true. And, you know, the best example I tell people is every time I've lent money to friends and family, I've been disappointed. And it's and the funniest example of no good deed goes unpunished is you lend somebody money and they're mad at you because they can't pay you. And they're mad at you because whenever there's a social function and they have to be there, they're mad at you because you remind them of the debt that they owe and the fact that they can't pay. So nothing good comes out of it. And it's just ironic that you're helping a friend out, but then after you help them, you're not friends anymore.
So
So
you've seen
that's
this
that to me
happen,
is
I
a great.
guess, a few times.
Oh, it happens every time, almost every time, almost every
So
time.
now, but
You know,
you seem still like the person, Ed, that would still continually help a friend out in need.
I did, of course, and I do good things and prepare for your punishment, right? If I like you and we're
Yeah,
friends for a long time and you make a reasonable ask, it's like now I'm like, all right, I'm gonna help you, but I'll good knowing you.
that's. I mean, I find that I.
It's been nice knowing you because with me I don't lend money. I give money. I have a limit. Like with certain people, I might draw the line at whatever
Yeah,
this limit is. And as soon as that I give them money, I'm also saying goodbye at the same time.
that's interesting to
It's
hear.
like,
Like, 'cause
and then
I
some of them
feel like
some of them will surprise
that's
me.
crazy to hear, though. I feel like people, you know, yeah, it's weird to hear. I feel like people should be like more thankful than in debt and say find a way to like actually pay the money back to somebody that they loaned it through.
You'd be surprised how people that are in tough situations can justify. And the other thing is if I'm giving them the money and I know that they need it. Well, listen, if they could have borrowed it from an institution, they would have borrowed it. They obviously can't get it from anywhere else. So I'm their last hope sometimes. And it's like, okay, I like you. I want to see you do good. I'll give you a shot. And some of them will surprise me. Some of them will actually pay back and they'll come back around. Um, but I'm saying most people, in a lot of situations I've been in, it's like you're either never going to talk to them again or they're going to actually end up hating you for helping them because you're basically reminding them every time they see you that they can't pay you and that they're still in the same situation they were in when they asked for the money. So, and now you become part of that.
Huh.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing. Well, Ed, I think you're about running out of time here, brother, and I just want to thank you, for coming on the pod. I've enjoyed, our conversation today. What would you say inspired you to start your journey into, the world of entrepreneurship, the world of business as we know it?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I grew up in like a blue collar situation. We didn't have much. And I was always encouraged to just get a job. And like, I think my grandparents would have been very happy with me if I became a cop or a fireman, which is good. It's noble and it's great. But early on, I was working. I was doing side jobs, hustles, and I got a job working for a guy named Al who works for me now, and he ran like a carpet cleaning company and a general commercial cleaning company, and just watching him run the business and kind of have control of things and really control of his life and it just showed me a lot. And he struggled a lot with those businesses, but even in the struggle, I saw the power of being an entrepreneur and the upside potential of being an entrepreneur. And I liked it, and that stuck with me. And I think those early experiences, it was always in my mind that I always knew too, like I wasn't really a great student, so I wasn't going to be a guy that made a lot of money by becoming an attorney or going through the college path or getting the master's degree. That wasn't in the cards for me. So for me, if I was gonna do really well financially and get some financial freedom, it was gonna have to be with
Mm,
entrepreneurship. So that's what got me on
mm.
that path.
And now, I guess, kind of the full cycle, if I'm not mistaken, the friend who gave you a job and who's an entrepreneur now has been kind of like one of your right hand man working with you for a while now. Is that not incorrect?
Right. He's always been
Yeah.
a collaborator. He's always been a mentor. And when I started doing really well, I needed
Mm.
trusted people that I could bring in. And it brings up a good topic with business. Do you work with
Yeah. Let's talk about
friends
that.
or not?
What do you? How much? I
So
mean, and you do
for
have friends
me,
that work for you, and it seems to work out for you.
well, you see it working out for me because this is really late in the game. I've been doing
Yeah.
this so many years that the people that remain look, it makes you think that it worked out for me. But there was a lot of people that fell off,
Oh, okay.
you know, before that. Yeah, so I would say the percentages are that it's only going to work out 20% of the time, and the other 80% is going to end. Yeah, 20% of friends you hire may last. The other 80%, you're going to end up firing them. They're going to quit, and you're never going to talk to them again for whatever reason. Jealousy. When you hire friends, there's this automatic feeling on their side that you owe them something most of the time. Now, the people that do last with me, that whole friendship had to be restructured. If the friends that are working for me, the friends that are working for me now, that have been with me 10 plus years, they understand that this relationship has changed. We could still go out once in a while and I could be their buddy and their friend, but the rest of the year, the rest of the time, I'm their boss. I'm running point. It has to be that way. If they don't fall in line with that, you're gonna have problems, and that's why the other 80% are gone. And I got stories, and we can't get into it now, but I got stories about failed relationships because I put friends on, and it
Yeah,
didn't
see,
work out.
like, again, I don't see that side like you just mentioned, just from like, being around for a while and like what I know
Well, it
today.
the reality check is when you start
Mm.
making a lot of money, and you know certain people have feelings about it. It's just a black hole of a vortex of problems. So I would say I don't tell people not to do it. I just say be careful with it and make sure you have a conversation early on with whoever you're going to collaborate with, and that at that level when you're going to hire somebody, a friend, you got to tell them straight up, like, the friendship is over. This is going to be a new relationship. We could still be chummy, we could still hang out, but there has to be a respect there that the business now comes first before the friendship, and I'm your boss. I'm your superior at the company. At least they got to respect that. They can't bring that. And a lot of friends will bring past history into the business. Past situations, grievances. The other thing you got to tell them is that this is a clean slate. You come to work for me,
Can't bring old
you
shit up.
know that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you never
I
bring
mean,
it up.
listen, I've been in the game not as long as you, maybe like two-thirds less. And, I've brought some people on that I've known, from the area and whatever, and it hadn't worked out for me. And I don't speak to them either anymore, in that case, whether it was just, I parted ways respectfully, and, maybe they feel like quite the opposite. So I've been on that, side of the coin. Um, yeah.
Well, the thing that friends bring to business that's not good is they bring a lot of sarcasm and passive aggressive stuff. Okay, because they know you and you have a history with them. So, you're talking to a group of employees that are just your employees, but that person is your employee and your friend. So they like to throw in little things, and I don't put up with that shit. Like, I have a rule that no sarcasm, especially in meetings, because it's not productive. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's not productive, and all it does is piss people off. You know, so that's what you try to avoid. You want a culture where everybody's kind of on the same level of thinking. The group is cohesive, and sometimes those friends, they're the cancer that spreads amongst the ranks, and that's why you got to cut them out. But I've learned to hire them carefully and make sure that we're on the same page going into it, so that I don't have those problems anymore. But I would say, and it goes back to the old saying: hire slow, fire fast. That's another really
It's a
good
great
tip for
quote. I love
anybody
it. I live by it. Yeah,
starting a business.
I agree with you on that one. Well, listen, now I will say I do have 11:30. I get going, but hey, man,
Yeah, yeah. Good. This was
yeah,
good. We
no,
got a
really
lot in.
appreciate being on the pod. I had a great time. So thanks for being here.